The 2008 hit television series Painter of the Wind, or 바람의 화원 in Korean, was based on Lee Jang-myung's historical novel of the same name, published in 2007. Then in April this year, over 15 years after the novel first met its readers, the book will be published in English. Translator Stella Kim is finally bringing this best-selling work to an international audience. She won the 2014 LTI Korea Award for Inspiring Translators and the 2016 Korea Times Modern Korean Literature Translation Award. And she joins us in the studio now for Touch Base in Seoul this week. Ms. Kim, hello, and it's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So first, congratulations on having the book coming out soon. It's going to be quite special to have this book available in English, I feel. We'll get to that in just a bit. But first, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself for our audience? What led you to become a literary translator?
Well, I grew up in the U.S. and I was always interested in Korea and Korean history in general. So I ended up studying, was remotely close to Korean history, which, there wasn't a major, I guess, in my college. So I ended up studying East Asian studies, and that got me, interested in studying Korean history. So I went to grad school to study modern Korean history. And while I was in that program, Mr. Kim Young-ha, the South Korean writer, was there as a artist in residence. So as I was taking, I think it was a Korean lit class, he came to give a talk, and that was where I first sort of discovered Korean literature. And honestly, I sort of got into literary translation sort of arrogantly, thinking that I could translate so much better than, all of the translations that are out there. When I got into it, I realized how difficult it was. So now I'm very much humbled and respect all of the great translators out there. But that was pretty much how I got into literary translation.
What was it about translation that you came to discover was difficult?
I suppose I originally, thought that translation was all about, just taking Korean words and converting them into English.
Right. So directly translating everything. Right. So it's has 100% perfect meaning.
Right. Except the perfect meaning doesn't necessarily come from translating all the words on the pages correctly, I suppose, or accurately into English. There was a lot more subtext that you had to watch out for, just kind of the context that you had to give. And all of those were kind of really difficult, I suppose, when I started translating.
But you still must have enjoyed it because you kept going. And
yeah, I do. It's a lot of fun, even though it is still very much difficult. So, yeah. And I think I've been pretty much doing, translation and interpretation all my life because I had to do that for my parents when I was growing up in the U.S. So, yeah, it sort of came to me naturally, and I kind of was too lazy, I suppose, to switch careers.
Okay, well, you've had wonderful translations before, but we have you here today because of A Painter of the Wind. It's set to be published in English for the first time in April. Yeah. The novel, written by Lee Jang-myung, sold over 1 million copies in South Korea and was adapted into a hit TV series in 2008, as we said. How did you come across this book? How did you come to be the one to translate it?
Honestly, I wasn't the one who chose to translate this book. It was Hannah Pang, my co-translator, who first started translating it, and she approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in translating. I actually auditioned for another book that she was going to publish, and I didn't get that one. And instead, she offered me this one, which I'm grateful for.
So did you know the book before then?
No, I actually had no idea that there was this book or the popular TV series. I hadn't heard of it. So it was my first time discovering both the book and the series.
And then when you did read it and watch the series, what did you think? Was this Did you feel that this was something right away that you would
I very
drawn
much
to?
like the book. I was sort of afraid to watch the series just because I was sort of intimidated that this book was already so hugely popular in Korea. So I didn't. I only ended up watching like snippets of it, but I very very liked the book, and thankfully Hannah was kind enough to offer me the co-translator position, I suppose, in a way.
So you did feel some hesitance or pressure in translating this work then because of its popularity?
A little bit for sure, because I didn't, want to sort of make this. I kind of wondered if I'd be skilled enough, I suppose, as a translator to bring this book to the English readers. So, so there was definitely a bit of hesitance there. But I really enjoy the process of translating it, and I really hope that the readers get to enjoy it too.
Can you tell us a little bit about it? It's a historical fiction work set in the late 18th century during the Joseon dynasty, and it's about a renowned court painter, right?
Two painters, actually, Kim Hong-do and Shin Yun-bok. And it is a historical fiction, and there's like a big twist that I kind of want to leave for the readers to find
Sure,
out.
of course.
But yeah, it's sort of a mystery novel, detective novel too, in a way. You get to look for sort of the murderer, I suppose, in the book. And there's like codes that you have to crack, or the characters crack. But yeah, it would be, I think, interesting for both like the Korean or historical fiction buffs, I suppose, and mystery novel buffs as well.
It must have been quite challenging to translate a historical, a work that's set in the historical fiction, because there are a lot of things that perhaps aren't easily translatable, especially for a non-Korean or non-Korean speaking audience.
Right. Yeah, there was this one huge section where there was sort of wordplay between the Korean pronunciation of Chinese characters and the Chinese pronunciation of Chinese characters, which was really difficult to translate. And yeah, that part required a lot of editing on the editor's part as well. And but I just hope that it sort of got through.
But even the historical context of perhaps some of the things that happen in a royal court, people might not be familiar with.
Yeah, Hannah and I sort of discussed this at length, and we decided to put in footnotes, which the author was slightly against. I mean, he wanted the book to read sort of really smoothly as it had been written in English. But I think giving that kind of historical context through footnotes would help our readers who are, coming across these strange-looking words for the first time.
And you mentioned your co-translator, Hannah Pang. How was that to work with a co-translator? Have you ever done that before? And what was that process like?
I've never actually co-translated a book before this one, so it was very new to me. But most of the translation sort of happens right where you're sitting with a computer.
Right.
So the process itself wasn't very different, I suppose, but it was really nice to have someone to talk to about these difficult words or expressions there were to translate. And Hannah did prepare a glossary, so we shared a list of terms and how to translate them into English, or whether to, I suppose, transliterate them and things like that. So it was kind of nice having sort of that, support in a way, because when you're translating alone, you don't ever really get that.
Sure, I can imagine. Did you take bits of the text then? Was that divided, or how does that work?
Oh, I should mention. Yeah.
No.
So we did translate. So there were 2 volumes to the book. Hannah translated the first volume, and then I translated the second. And what happened sort of was she would translate like the first chapter, And because the author, Lee Jung-myung, actually speaks English fluently, she would send, the chapters that she'd finished to him, and he'd sort of give comments and suggestions.
So he was very actively involved in the process
in this
then.
Yep.
That's interesting.
And because the book had been written, years ago, there were things that he wanted to change in the Korean text as well for the English readers. Or not just for the English readers, but also for the Korean public as well. So we were able to incorporate those changes into the translation as well. So when she sent, her translation, Mr. Lee would give comments and send it back, and I would read over her translation to sort of, keep the general tone and the translation style the same, but I'm not sure exactly how much I was able to do that.
Well, the book, it's almost set to be published soon, so it is very exciting. What do you expect or hope international readers take away from the book? Because I'm sure that that's something you must have been thinking about a lot when you were translating.
When I do translate a novel, I suppose I don't necessarily think about the readers. I think about how to sort of make this book that I loved reading come to life in a different language, which is, I guess, in a way, thinking about the readers. So I sort of translated without necessarily the readers in mind, but I do hope that this 바람의 화원, the Painter of the Wind, becomes a great addition to the wealth of Korean literature that are being translated out there. And there are this book also has, I think, over 30 paintings by Kim Hong-do and Shin Yun-bok in beautiful colors. So I do hope that that the readers get to enjoy not just the book itself, but also the great paintings.
Yes, it sounds like it's going to be a great book then, especially with those paintings. I think that is something that the readers really will enjoy as well. Well, I cannot wait for our international audience to discover this work and your translation. Painter of the Wind will be coming out soon in April. We'll have to leave it there. We've been speaking to translator Stella Kim for Touch Base in Seoul. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you.